Thank you very much there, Fraser. I think the thing is really to look at what's developing in the world of NPS to become more focused on growth. And I think that's been identified by the founder of NPS, that growth is now the most important factor in the development, and making sure we understand what's some of the hidden values behind things like advocacy, and seeing how that looks in terms of a pathway and what that means in terms of going next. I think the thing with NPS is it can be a indicator, but sometimes it's not the actual result. And we've seen a situation where Australia New Zealand appliance retailer, had an 89 NPS but went into liquidation. And the thing with all of that was, whilst the 89 looks really good, the problem was it wasn't generating sales because they had lost the interest of their new customers because their product range was no longer relevant. So consequently, the numbers still look good, but it was only measuring existing customers. It wasn't actually identifying what the market position was. So it's being very, I think, aware of the why, what's behind the number, what is actually telling us, what does it mean in terms of results, and seeing it more as a tool where you can use as a rearview mirror as to what's happened. So one of the biggest challenges today across all categories is that people are data rich, but they're action poor. There is a great challenge around what does it all mean? How is it going to be actioned? What is it that I can expect out of it? And have we got an emotional connection with our customers so that we get to understand the why? So there was a big challenge to engage audiences. And one really good example of this, a client situation, 700 locations, the top 20% versus the bottom 20% had 145% higher average transaction value. Now, that means a lot of money. The interesting thing is the NPS difference was only 15%. So where the money is being made is before the NPS actually gets evaluated. It's in the experience itself, and it's being able to deliver an experience that's providing a lot more value to customers. And 145% more is a massive financial impact. So it's seeing more and more focus on the growth outcomes and seeing where it takes you from there. So one of the things I really like about what Steve Jobs had to say was his view of customer. And I thought it was really interesting how he got to the point, if they tell others, you build a brand. And I think that that's what advocacy is essentially about. It's not transactional. It's more than that. It takes it to that level, that where I see the future going with advocacy is that it has more and more impact, and I'll show you in the slides to come the significance that advocacy actually has. So, what makes an advocate? Well, see, the thing is, we often get caught up believing the likelihood to recommend is actually the outcome, when the real outcome is have they recommended? And it's a completely different result. And I've seen it for one particular uh, global business. Whilst the NPS was really rah-rah at 83, when it came to the percentage of actual um, advocates, it was 58. So it's a matter of seeing that advocacy is actually quantifying the value. It's actually providing real reality to it, and it's a genuine connection to the customer, and the fact that when they do actually mention the value to somebody, they're building trust from day one. So an advocate is really one of the biggest advocates in terms of growth. They are enabling the growth, and they're a major asset in the business, regardless of the size and the direction. If you've got advocates, you've got sustainable growth. So the first thing about advocacy is the trust curve. 88% of people trust the recommendations they get from their friends, family, over and above other marketing activity. 86% are influenced by it to make their decision as well. So that element itself is huge. The other side to it is that it doesn't require any marketing cost, as in generation of campaigns. It's actually organic that's coming through, and the influence of those results are substantial. And when it comes down to spend level, the people that are coming from that direction of word of mouth, they end up spending two times more than the paid advertised customers. So it's two times more for no cost. I like that. And the results are also starting to show the fact that they've come from a recommendation, their retention rate is 37% higher. So all of a sudden, the loss of customers is actually being secured through the referral rates, and it can then link through to overall revenue of 67% more, and most importantly, lifetime value between 4 to 8 times more. So the advocate stays longer, spends more, they actually recommend more. So it becomes a very, very foundation for compounding returns because it's not one-off transactional, it's ongoing. So it's really been because people have been blinded by NPS, but after 23 years of it, I think there's far more value um, going to come out of the impact of what advocacy is demonstrating. And Bain shown an example of a 12 percentage point increase in customer advocates result in a 200% increase in the growth. Harvard has shown 2.5 times higher sales growth from the top performers of loyalty, so the ones at the top end of the spectrum, and also seeing that those referred customers generate 16% more profit than non-referred, higher margins, and most significantly out of it all is they're 18% more loyal. So and that all flows through to the fact that an advocate is someone that is recommending, and Forbes have shown that the really happy customers will actually talk to 9 people.
Mhm.
So um, there's a big difference between an advocate talking to 9 people and someone having an NPS score talking to 9 people. It's the reach is what I'm saying is far greater through this mechanism. So if you then combine all of those sort of components, it shows that there is a huge value in building those advocates because they are the foundation for growth.
Mhm.
I'm just going to show an example here, just showing the difference between top 20% of stores and the bottom 20%. The top 20% year on year grew 24%. And when you looked at the differences of advocacy, yes, their Google ratings were way better, but they generated 3 times more new customers. And that was off the back of their ratio of generation of advocates was at 78% versus 32% for the bottom tier. So it was quite clear that the difference is expressed in the proportion of new customers and the ratio that are coming through as advocates. So when you look at the numbers of the bottom 20%, 5% of their new customers were from the advocacy world, 5% of the 15%, that is. Um, Whereas 35% of the 35 were in fact coming from advocacy. So
Mm.
advocacy, the prices are the same, but the growth is 24% or higher.
Mm.
So
Interesting.
that's really the sort of thing. It's identifying the impact it has on the growth curve. And this is a good example of new customers, right? So two groups here, those that shopped around three different stores versus came straight to one store. So the one that went out to three stores, 47% of the traffic were basically looking after a special price promotion, special offer, right? And whereas the people that were referred, 46% of those for the one store only came due to referred somebody. So the referral rate was 46% for them, and it's only 27% for the people that shopped around. So, and the result, it clearly shows that the shopping around um, has actually been very, very focused on the special promotion, not against the recommendations.
Mm.
So it's looking at the patterns. And this one here, it's not the same data, but it's the principle. It's knowing what impact each path to purchase is having across all customers. And what this shows here is the advocates who are see the store brand as their favorite. They're really on board. They had an NPS of 85, but the people that were chasing special promotions had an NPS of 51. So this is right from day one, right? So they're already starting with a very low base when they're coming in from that position. So it's being able to track across the journeys where your customers are coming and what's driving those customers and what the impact is, because when you see the differences between an 85% ratio, and that's clearly an existing customer, versus someone coming in through the special promotions at 51, there's a lot more to be gained if you can get more of those customers into your um, 85% levels.
Mm.
Okay, we'll just talk now a little about the advocacy zone. What does it actually look like? So the first thing is just to reinforce what has been emphasized through the founder of NPS is that growth is a function of the number of new customers and their spend, plus the number of existing customers that are retained and their spend. So ultimately, it's actually seeing the difference in the financial impact that relates to the actual customers. And the starting point is to do it based on what are the advocates from existing customers showing? What is the proportion of them that are actually advocates and what are not? And what's the difference in the spend level? Because an advocate has to have recommended you. So you've got your top layer, you've now got your advocacy layer, and now the next one is those new customers that have come through. What proportion are they coming through the referrals and online reviews? Because that's really showing the outcome that you've got your people out there that are advocates, but are you generating the actual new customers from it? So it's combining those two that really tells you where your advocacy base really is. Are you creating it, um, or is it just reliant on people that have become advocates earlier on? So the first thing is to know where you stand in the advocacy world. And the next one is to then understand what's the cost of acquisition for those that were non referral and reviews, the ones that came through the marketing loop, if you like, versus those coming from the referral. And it's a simple formula: total marketing spend related to the number of new customers. That's the cost per customer. So it's then breaking it down to see what's going on in relationship to exactly the differences that are occurring in terms of retention, in terms of revenue shifts, and relating it all the way through so that you've got a quantification. I think that the thing is that there is no point guessing at all this. You've got to have the numbers, and then you can start to break it down to a store level, to a store type, a channel, and a segment. And you can then start to see the patterns of where are you getting the traction? Is it coming out of the large malls, or is it coming out of particular segments, etc.? So the second phase is to define the value and to know what that actually means in terms of if we were to increase our number of advocates by 10 percentage points, what's it worth? And have that as a very clear point. So there's three phases. First is the quantification of current. Second is looking at what the potential value is. And then the third one is actually starting to drill into why, to really understand what's differentiating your advocates from your non-advocates, what's making it look a completely different set of perspectives. So the thing I like really much is what's their difference in, are we exceeding expectations for advocates? Are we not for non-advocates or for passives? So it's breaking it down. And when you're doing all of this, the thing to look at into is really a matter of what standards have you actually got that actually are driving the sales. So what we've found over the time is that if you can quantify the impact, so in this instance, if all 8 standards are delivered, right, there's a $150 value point, right? But if two of those standards are missed, it drops, the sale value drops by 16%. But if you miss four or more, you're down by 28%. So it's being absolutely clear that every standard has a value. And every time you consistently deliver, and when you're doing the all standards, NPS is 99. So it takes out any guesswork. It's working for NPS. It's achieving. But if you've missed those four standards, NPS has dropped down to 54. You know, it's a really bad zone to be in. So the important thing is to quantify the impact. And the fastest way to do that is to look clearly at what your standards are and what dollar impact they're having, both on average transaction value and on NPS. But it can be done, it really comes back to what access you've got. So the first access point is your survey of NPS customers. That's your first access point. It's being able to understand their side of it. The next access point is looking at lapsed customers that have stopped, haven't come back, having a really good understanding of where they're up to, and then looking to at potential buyers that haven't bought from you. So it's, and then there's a matter of looking at other forms of customer feedback, which is coming through social media, through requests or complaints. So the more you can pull what we call one voice together, which is all of the multi sources, the more understanding you're getting of it.
And do you get down to the point where you understand who the advocate is themselves? Yeah, right. I mean, that's
Yeah,
the ultimate measurement.
yeah. The thing is that the ultimate thing is then treating them as VIPs, right? That they're not just another one. They're actually considered as high value, and you're actually ensuring that your ongoing communication relationship is actually really well managed.
So the NPS score is telling you the who the advocate is. It's also telling you who the beneficiary is of the referral is. Yeah. So as well, you're technically
Yeah,
getting that data from them.
it starts. It's a filter, right?
Mm,
So it's then from there you're then asking
mm.
people, have you recommended us?
Yeah, cool.
Right?
So,
You're breaking it down so that it is really, really visible as to what type of customers have actually recommended you.
mhm,
Um, and and being, I think, in a situation that you're not
mhm,
sort of seen to be pushy or anything of that nature. It's just really it's really a subtle request.
mhm. Cool. So, okay.
Yeah, so I think that the thing that we find is that if you get the sales part right first, you have actually personalized the experience and people are seeing value in what they're doing. In this
Mhm,
example, client example, in 1 year, we had a 31% increase in upsell rate, and that rolled into an 18% increase in NPS. It started, and the delivery of it was through customers feeling that they were getting more um, value out of what they were buying and that they were getting a full solution. It was not chasing the NPS score,
mhm,
right? There's a big difference between organizations that get hung up on the NPS score, but they don't actually work out the cause and effect. So, in terms of NPS nowadays, I feel that there is a vanity score issue that runs around that. Once people see they're in the 70s, there is a sort of oh yeah, that's yeah maybe there isn't really enough focus afterwards, and essentially, um, I think that it ends up restricting people, and people end up they can't see the changes. They want to do something, but they try, but nothing happens. So
mhm,
it becomes a bit of a this is not really getting. There's a lack of engagement that occurs. But one of the critical things that you'll see on the right hand side is that when you go right to the heart of it, the
mhm,
likelihood to return to the brand when that is at 10 out of 10, the advocacy score is at 85. So 85% of those people are going to return.
mhm,
Boom. But when
mhm,
it goes down to seven, kaboom, it drops right down to 58. So it's knowing where the cliff is when you start to fall over the end. So to turn advocacy into compounding growth relies very much on personalization. It's making it real. It's getting people to take ownership within the teams and to make sure it sticks. And what it's doing is it's building capability. It's building across both the operations, marketing, HR, so that there is a very, very clear system in place of how things are being executed, the links through to your standards of excellence and how you actually communicate, reward, recognize, making sure that the results are being proven in the sales side of things and turning that into far more personalization in terms of going through what is it these particular people would want and understanding what the needs are so that the process is needs based, not just selling as such, and really getting people to focus on their capability skills in terms of one thing at a time and linking together all their advocacy across all the medias
mhm,
and understanding what that means so that ultimately there's a really clear pathway from customer centric understanding and commitment. It's not just learning, it's being committed to the personalized model where people are demonstrating real empathy, real understanding, aligning it to helpfulness and care in terms of expertise, giving the trust element. The trust element is the fundamental. If you don't make it to the trust world in terms of this level, you don't go further. That's really where you stop. It's one of the most determining factors now is the trust. And then from there, the adding value becomes really important, and advocacy then kicks in there. And once you've got the advocacy working, you will see then increased retention, increased spend, and a follow through in terms of building the brand and the reputation. So it's vital to be able to build a very clear system that supports each level of the pathway. So really to get started, well, I think everyone starts from their own base level, but the most important thing is to really understand your advocacy, to be able to work out what is going on, what are your returns, what are your zones of different opportunity, what's working really well for you, um, integrating all of your customer content so that you've got a really strong engine. It's not just a data section, it's actually something that you're getting real clarity around between what the return is, right, when you do it this way versus this way. Once you're doing that, the important thing is to then inspire your teams with real voice of customers so that they are really feeling how their customers are feeling. They really are connecting to what makes something real for them. They are really connected so that they then start to understand the advocacy or the non-advocacy based on what customers are feeling. And the third one is very much putting in place the right action rhythms. So this is where it comes to getting to the point that you have very clear processes that support what's happening in terms of daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and it's targeted one opportunity at a time for every store team member and is actually connected to the whole recognition process of saying, this is what we've achieved. And it's being proactive in the process. It's not being a reactive system. It's actually saying, the more we do of this, the more we will get in terms of the outcomes. So that's really the three things that I would say are fundamental. You've got to work out where you are on the advocacy curve. You've got to motivate your team to actually get on board with it so that they feel the difference. And then you've got to take the action. So it's knowing what is the ratio. So there's no point asking people, for example, that are scoring 6 and below for NPS. It's not they're not going to be recommending you. So it's focusing on the audience and being able to see what they are, so that you can effectively use that in more marketing related communication.